I've been building a software company online for over 3.5 years, and I moved to London about last year, and so here's an honest review. I don't think this has any major surprises. The big pros are that it's a major city, and particularly that it's a major hub. So even if people don't live here, they always come through here. Basically, everybody comes through London at some point in time, even if they live in other big cities, and this is the case for most hubs, but everybody comes through here at some point, and I would say London is probably one of the most popular kind of stop-by destinations especially, and so more so than Dubai or anywhere else, you just have a lot of people that come here. Relevant people who are doing things, they will always be here at some point in time. The second thing is like every kind of tribe is here. So any kind of social circle that you want, there is a community for it. I think it's probably the most international kind of big city hub. I think New York is probably on a similar level. But as far as English speaking major world capitals go, I think London is the most diverse in terms of the history, the arts, the culture, the business. Like it has huge diversity, right? Like SF is very tech focused. If you go to Hong Kong or Singapore, it's very enterprise and finance focused. I think London has one of the biggest mixes in terms of you find a lot of small business owners as much as you find big enterprise and big finance and things like that. Also, I will say another one of the nice things is actually the private clubs, because they provide a kind of social infrastructure if you're somebody who's moving here as an online founder. So one of the things which is true as an online founder, at least it has been for me, is that you really have to go out of your way to create your social circle. And that's because obviously you don't get one by default because you're doing your business online. And you might meet people online, sure, but this idea of private clubs really lets you pick the clubs that you want to be kind of affiliated with. And so you can try and find people at those clubs, which is a nice thing. So like you can find clubs that are relevant to your interests. Because London was kind of the birthplace of these clubs, there are just loads. And so you can always find a relevant club. There are a lot of founders clubs and things like that and business clubs. And I think that can be nice to find a social circle that you actually might get on with a little bit more than hanging around any friends that you can find. And I think no city in the world has as many of these. Definitely other cities have them. Lots of clubs are popping up all over. There's online ones now too, obviously paid communities and things like that. But having that in person, I think is really, really nice. And there's a lot of options here. So I will say, I think that's a bonus. Last thing is, I think it's a great hub if you want to explore Europe. Like if you want to stay here while exploring Europe, it's really nice. The flights are cheap. There's so much volume already that it's really easy for you to hop on a flight anywhere in Europe. You can go to the smallest towns to the biggest cities, whatever you want. Now, the cons. First thing is the pricing. It is a big city where things are expensive and the basic things are expensive. That's to be expected. At the end of the day, it's a downside because your standard of living isn't massively above other cities necessarily. My groceries are not some insane special mix that I can't find in a place like Lisbon or somewhere else in Europe. You pay a lot more for rent. With the same rent, you could buy yourself an insanely nice house somewhere along the coast in the south of Europe. So you're going to have to pay a lot more to maintain standard of living that you want. But at the end of the day, I think that's true with any big city. The bigger the city, the more this is true. You pay for access, actually. So that is kind of your entry fee to be in a place where a lot of other people with resources and power and influence are going to be. That's really it at the end of the day. It's very much the logic of some kind of community. The other big con, I think, is also that it's so big that it can get confusing. Yes, there's any tribe here. There's lots of clubs, things like that, but it's not immediately obvious where your place is. I think this is true for most places, but it really is what you make of it. It's not immediately obvious the kind of person that lives here because every type of person can live here. On the one hand, that's great. On the other hand, it's a capital of finance, but also of arts, but also of culture. It's got very strong science in the universities here and around. And so there's just a lot of possibility, and that can really be overwhelming when you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know how to start. That, I think, is the hard part. You have to be intentional to go out and build the social experience that you want, because otherwise you might fall into a group that you don't necessarily actually resonate with that much, or you might not really find a group at all because people won't let you in by default. So people will not let you in. You have to go make an effort. You have to reach out. You have to offer to grab coffee, to grab lunch, to grab whatever, to maintain these relationships, because everybody's busy. And so nobody's really going to give you the time of day by default, basically. You have to cultivate those friendships. If you are the new guy here, like you have to go out of your way in order to try and be a part of the group. People will not do it for you. If you are able to pay to access the right places, it can be extraordinarily worthwhile. But I also know that if you don't make the most of it, like if you don't have a plan, if you don't have the money, the resources to actually capitalize on a lot of opportunities, to be honest, it can be just an expensive box to live in. If you do not have the resources to capitalize on the opportunities, you're not going to get more out of it. Definitely great to have access to people, but if you are not being able to access the right people and the right social settings and things like that, you're just paying really high rent, really high cost of living for a lot of things, and having the same life that you otherwise wouldn't in a much, much cheaper place. And this is true, especially like as an online founder. Like your work at the end of the day is down to where you have your laptop. If you are paying 3 times as much to once in 6 months meet somebody who's maybe a little bit interested, that doesn't really work out. I think you really have to make sure that you are going out of your way to make the most of it and actually use your resources wisely. Or if you're just not in a place where you have the resources to join the clubs, to do the outings, things like that, because things cost money. Like even at these clubs, you don't just join them and are a part of them. You join the club, you pay, you go out with people there, you pay for events, you pay for food, you pay for drinks, you pay for whatever. And so you have to have the resources to sustain that kind of expenditure. And you have to like expect that. Otherwise, just being here in and of itself is not going to do anything for you. From a business perspective, from a life perspective, it might, like, I really like the city. I really like my life here. There's pros and cons. And sometimes also, just like any big city, it's very busy and frantic. And I think for me, that's something I enjoy. Now, I still strongly consider right now going back to Lisbon for a while, especially for personal reasons, but also because at the end of the day, I know that a lot of the work that I need to do right now to get me moving forward is just execution, and that's about me being behind my laptop. Sometimes I think there are also seasons where it doesn't make sense, where if you're really just working for a while, you're not going to get much more out of being someplace. But I think always having a presence here is something that like I plan to do. I hope this review is helpful if you're somebody who's considering London as an option. It's a great place, really, really nice city, but it has its downsides. I think it's a beautiful city to live in, but if you cannot afford it, if you cannot afford to make the most of it as well, I think you end up just spending a lot of money for maybe a relatively little benefit, depending on what the kind of benefit you're looking for is. If you're just looking to be around a lot of people and have a city with a lot of art and history and business, then London is great. Feel free to leave any questions below, and I will answer as many of them as I can.